Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am pleased to be here today, joined by leaders from across the business community, as well as members of our administration. That includes Secretary of Economic Development, Yvonne Howe, our Secretary of A&F, Matt Workowitz, Jeevan Rapamyaya of the Mass Office of International Trade and Investment, Ben Lingville-Engler of Mass Tech. And when I mention the business leaders from around the state, joining me, Brooke Thompson from Associated Industries of America, John Hurst, the Retailers Association of Massachusetts, J.D. Chesloff, the Mass Business Roundtable, Jim Rooney, the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, Nicole Obey, the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, Anita Roman, ALX, and Sergio Espinosa, who's a small business owner, Doug Howgate of Mass Taxpayers Foundation. Look, we're here today because Donald Trump's latest round of tariffs were going to go into effect. As we know, we heard this afternoon that there is a pause on reciprocal tariffs for the time being, with the exception of China, where tariffs are being raised. This means, though, that everyone still is going to continue to experience higher prices, higher costs. And we're dealing with a situation where there is a tremendous amount of chaos and uncertainty and unpredictability. And regardless of whether things were paused this afternoon, the fact remains we do not know what is going to happen next. This is causing considerable harm to our residents, to our economy, and to our businesses. And at the end of the day, I wish somebody could reach the president and get him to stop, because enough is enough. We cannot continue to have our economy in Massachusetts and around this country held hostage. We cannot continue to gamble with people's livelihoods. There really is no excuse for this chaos, where right now, as we speak, families are not able to budget, businesses aren't able to budget, businesses aren't able to invest, workers can't plan their retirements. We need a president who is focused on lowering costs and growing the economy, and everything that Donald Trump has been doing to date is just the exact opposite of that. A little while ago, I was with business leaders in a meeting to talk about what was happening with tariffs. Remember, we've already had tariffs in place now for some time, and more were slated to go into effect today. We had a meeting with business owners and with business leaders, as well as experts on trade. I wanted to understand exactly what the impacts are right now on the Massachusetts economy, what we are facing, how we can best manage and mitigate against those impacts. I'll say that Massachusetts is home to some of the greatest businesses, greatest companies in the entire, not just country, but world. So many great businesses, both large and small, that add so much to who we are as a state, make us who we are as a state, and also create great jobs, great life-changing products and services as well that have kept powering our economy and moving us forward. I want them to know, businesses in Massachusetts, this administration, we have your back. No matter what is coming from Washington, the chaos, the uncertainty, I will do everything in my power as governor, and our administration will, to help you as a business succeed in this time. But it is hard, and I understand that, and that is why I wish that President Trump would stop playing around with tariffs, would settle on some sensible course here, so that businesses can plan, families can budget, and we can be assured a more stable economy than the incredible cataclysmic roller coaster that we have been on the last several days. Although, in my experience, roller coasters go up and they go down and they go up and they go down. All we've seen is just a steady drop and a plummet the last week or so, and it's been absolutely devastating. So that's the message from my administration to the business community and to the people of Massachusetts. Let's work together. Let's do everything in our power to help one another. We talk about Team Massachusetts, and that is absolutely the spirit of this. I've also said to businesses, tell me where we can help you. Tell me where we can reduce some of the friction, some of the barriers. How can we help you and your employees move through this time? And we had a conversation about that earlier today. But you know, as governor, I have been focused from day one on how do we lower costs. It's why we cut taxes for the first time in 20 years. It's why we're building more housing to deal with the high cost of housing around this state and around this country. It's why we've expanded the talent pipeline for our workforce in the investments that we've made in our education system. It's why we've launched an energy affordability agenda so that we can drive down energy costs that are facing businesses and also residents. And it's why we've continued to invest in transportation infrastructure. We know that is so important to economic growth. So we're going to continue as a team, as an administration, to focus on these things to make life for our residents and our businesses easier and less expensive, while we continue to rally around one another to figure out how we can best manage and mitigate the situation that we presently find ourselves in. And with hopes that we have a president who will stop destabilizing the market and wreaking havoc with people's lives. Stop doing things that make it impossible for businesses to invest and deploy capital. That he will reverse these damaging policies, and that if he doesn't, Congress, please step in and act. But in the meantime, we're not going to sit back and sit on our hands. We're going to be about action here, working together. That's been the spirit, I know, of everybody up here. We may not always agree on everything, but we agree to come together, to collaborate, and to chart the best path forward. And we're lucky in Massachusetts to have some of the brightest minds, the most talented people, the most hardworking people. It's something we've been about for well over 250 years here. And we need to continue to be resourceful and determined, and I am both of those things. And so with that, I just want to thank all who joined me today. It's very helpful for our administration to hear directly, once again, from business leaders about how things are impacting them on the ground. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Secretary of Economic Development, Yvonne Hound, to say a little bit more.
Great. Thanks, Governor. I think some of you may know my background, but this is my first time in state government. I've had a long career in business as a CEO, a CFO, a COO, an investor in large, big global companies, but also in tiny startups. And having spent my whole life in business, I know how hard it is. Every day you're hustling, you're trying to do the right thing for your customers, you're trying to keep employees, you're trying to make sure your shareholders are happy, trying to make payroll, make ends meet. The last thing a business needs is this kind of chaos and instability. What is clearly happening right now is very bad for business, and we're already seeing it. Whether it's paused, whether it's happening, all of the different changes, it's bad for business. And we've heard that today. We had this very helpful meeting, and this meeting really represented the best of Massachusetts, of Team Massachusetts. We had large, very big global companies from life sciences, from technology. We had small family-run businesses, including some folks who are here, restaurateurs, people who make chocolate. We had European companies who actually are, have big operations here and invest in Massachusetts. We had a whole range of businesses, and all of them were consistent. These are very challenging times. However, the good news is all of them are also very consistent. We're very lucky to be in this state. We're very lucky to have the leadership of our governor and to have the support of this incredible team. And we're very lucky because last year we passed the Mass Leads Act, the $4 billion economic development bill, with the incredible partnership with our legislature. That economic development bill is going to continue to invest in all of these important sectors of the economy, regardless of what happens in DC. So we in our state will continue to invest in life sciences and curing disease. We'll continue to invest in climate change and in the science there. We're going to continue to invest in every small business, in all of our rural economy, in AI and robotics. So regardless of what happens in DC, we're committed here to doing the right things over the long term for Massachusetts. So we're going to outlive this cycle. The other thing, though, is that we have near-term pressures, and we heard those again loud and clear. We heard from businesses saying we are putting investment in Massachusetts on hold and in America on hold. We're a European company and we're not sure we can invest in this country. We heard from businesses saying we had to lay off employees, or we have employees afraid to come to work because of immigration scares. We heard of companies saying we can't get parts because of supply chain and costs going up. We heard about people having a hard time trying to figure out how to make cash flow work. So we are in our state are working very creatively right now. We have several ideas that we discussed, concrete things we can be doing. In the next couple of days, we'll be launching and announcing some of those through some of our quasis like Mass Tech, and we have an advanced manufacturing center there. So we are living in challenging times, but what gives me hope and confidence is this conversation we just had and all of our incredible businesses and communities here on Team Massachusetts. We will get through this like we've gotten through everything else, like we did 250 years ago, and we're very excited about bringing the Mass Leads Lab to life and also launching in the next couple of days some specific programs to address the current tariff issues. So with that, I'm going to hand off to my good friend Jim Rooney.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Governor. I'm Jim Rooney. I'm President and CEO of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, an organization that represents 1,300 businesses, mostly in Greater Boston, but throughout Massachusetts, and just about every industry that you can think about. On behalf of myself and my members and the other business association leaders from throughout the Commonwealth, here today, I want to thank the Governor and the Secretary for bringing us together to have this conversation about the impacts of the tariffs on businesses in Massachusetts. It was a very healthy dialogue, as Secretary Howe said, but enabling those businesses themselves to come to the table with the Governor to talk about their experiences was incredibly helpful to them, and I know that they're grateful, so thank you, Governor, for doing that. In terms of what I'm hearing from my members, I think I would sum it up that, by saying that the uncertainty is paralyzing in terms of their decision-making and their ability to think about how they are going to move forward. Massachusetts is an economy, is incredibly integrated into the global economy, many importers, many exporters, thinking about what is this going to mean. That's translated into hesitating on capital investments that they had planned to make this year, but that uncertainty says, you know what, I think I'm going to hold off on that. It's translated into not hiring according to the plan that they built coming into the year, and saying, you know what, I'm going to hold off on that until I see how this plays out. It's translated into looking at existing contractual relationships with each other, with companies, not just in Massachusetts, but across the country and the globe, and seeing if those business relationships still work. If I committed to build something for you that relies on steel or aluminum, assuming a certain price that I was going to pay for that, now I may not be able to honor that price. What am I going to do about it? Because as a contractor, I may not be able to absorb that. So that's what I mean about uncertainty being paralyzing to the business community and to the economy that we represent in Massachusetts. We know that there's a number of things that we need to pursue in this, and certainly the kinds of interventions that the Secretary and the Governor spoke about in terms of the things we can do together and the things we can do in partnership with government. At the forefront, of course, you know, this is as much a political as it is an economic issue that has to be dealt with, and we're ready to stand with our colleagues in the business community in Massachusetts to address that. With that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, the President of the Retailers Association of Massachusetts, John Hurst.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Governor. Glad to be here this afternoon. Thank you for pulling us all together. You know, Governor, I'm old enough to remember, and I grew up in the shadows, in Ohio, in the shadows of auto plants, steel plants, appliance plants that unfortunately, you know, they aren't around anymore. And I get the frustration. I get the frustration of our auto workers, or steel workers, a lot of common family, hard-working families across the Commonwealth and across the nation. I understand the frustration, and we understand the need for fair trade. We understand the need for open trade, fair trade, free trade across all nations and across the globe. And we don't have that today. We get it. We need to fix this trade problem. But we have to understand that in today's economy, 70% of our economy is the consumer. The consumer is what's driving our economy, and the consumer is buying products from all around the world today. And who is serving those consumers? The vast majority of their dollars go to small businesses. So small businesses and consumers are the two areas that are most hurt by tariffs. And make no mistake about it, tariffs are a direct tax upon the consumer. And taxing the consumer means that small businesses are going to see their sales drop and their profitability drop. So we need to deal with unfair trade, no question about it. But we need to do it in a common sense way, in a measured way, that we're not hurting our consumers, we're not hurting our small businesses, and we're asking the president to step back and negotiate fair trade, negotiate free trade. But let's make sure that our consumers and our small businesses and our local economy is made whole. Thank you very much, and I'd like to bring up Brooke Thompson, who is the president and CEO of Associated Industries of Massachusetts.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Governor Healey. Thank you, Secretary Howe. As John said, I'm Brooke Thompson, President and CEO of Associated Industries of Massachusetts. We represent businesses across the Commonwealth, from the Berkshires to Boston and everywhere in between. 3,400 members, 150 different industries. And like John, a lot of our members are small and medium-sized businesses. And just to put a point on what John and what Jim said, what does paralysis for businesses really mean? So I have an industrial contractor out in the western part of the state. They have weathered a lot of recessions. They were going into 2025 saying this was going to be their best year on record, despite some of the challenges coming out of a new election, right? We thought we had left some of the uncertainty behind us in 2024. Now that that individual hit the third month, started to really see some retraction from some of the folks that they were doing business with, and actually now, by the first week in April, 50% of their contracts are on hold. 50%. That is completely devastating to a business that is small and medium sized, and let's be honest, even some of our larger employers. And the conversation now that they're having is, can they stay open? Can they keep their workers? We also have a paper manufacturer out in the Berkshires. They have had a strong relationship with their Canadian counterparts. They purchase $15 million worth of paper products every year from Canada. Looking at, again, with all this uncertainty, but just trying to run the numbers based on some of the data we've heard, that could equate to anywhere from $3, $4, $5 million in additional costs in a year. That, again, for them means they're out of business. These are stories that we cannot afford in Massachusetts. We know more than ever that this is a competitive environment for our economy. It's a competitive environment for our employers, and it's a competitive environment for our families. And so I am deeply grateful to the governor, to her team, to not just bring businesses here to listen to what they're struggling with in these uncertain times, but to try to find solutions as well. It is not, again, solely a political issue. It is a business and economic imperative for us in the Commonwealth. So thank you, Governor, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Brooke. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was really something to listen to some of the stories. I mean, to hear of from one business owner who's already had to close, lay off people in doing so, to hear from another business owner, you know, in the restaurant space, 90% of your kitchen's stainless steel. Where's that steel coming from? Not this country. So, you know, things are completely on hold, not just around Massachusetts, but around this country right now. And it's incredibly destabilizing to our economies, and incredibly destabilizing to families around Massachusetts, around the entire United States. So again, thank you all for coming together. Our promise is to remain in communication and in collaboration as we identify ways that we can better mitigate and work through these times. But again, continue to call on President Trump to stop the chaos, stop the uncertainty, and let's get back to a sound business practice, a sound approach to what we need to do in terms of economic growth for our country. I'm happy to take any questions.
Governor, could you or Secretary Howe elaborate?
You obviously heard from the folks behind you that businesses are struggling. You said you'd stand up for them. So what direct relief can your administration offer? Is tax relief again on the table for businesses in Massachusetts?
Well, I think one of the things we have going for us, and remember, let's just like to level set here, Massachusetts, we were just rated #1 in the country for education, for innovation, for healthcare. We have the safest drinking water in the country, we have the safest state in the country. We're also ranked the best state to have a baby, to raise a family, or B, if you're a working mom or dad. That's not to say we aren't without our challenges. I'm after that every day, especially around costs. It's been my #1 goal as governor since I took office. It's why we lowered taxes. It's why I filed and signed the largest housing bill in history so that we're building more housing to bring down housing costs. It's why I'm going hard after an energy affordability agenda to lower energy costs in this state. And we're going to continue to work on that while we make the investments transformative that we've made in transportation, in education, and in workforce. The other thing that we have here is we have tools at our disposal. Mass Life Sciences Center, Mass Clean Energy Center, Mass Tech, and other organizations, quasis, that have grants, that have programming, that have credits. We're gonna make the most of that. It's why we worked so hard. It's why we worked so hard in collaboration with all these folks under Secretary Howe's leadership to file and sign the transformative Mass Leads Act. And I said, we did the job of building that, of getting that passed. This year is all about implementing that. So I think, that's where we look to start, to leverage what we have available and what's out there while we consider other things that we need to do. I'll work with other governors. I'll work with other countries. I see our friends from Canada here. To be clear, the relationship between Canada and New England is so strong and so important. I talk about housing, I've said it before. We need Canadian lumber. We don't need it to be more expensive as we look to build more housing in this state. There's so many alliances and partnerships that we need to lean into, and I think in part today was also about how can we within Massachusetts lean on one another and the resources that we have here. To have folks who are engaged in advanced manufacturing, who might be able to supply others in this state, right, who are looking for those parts that they're typically sourcing from outside of the United States. These are some of the things that we need to think about in this moment. Is there anything else that anyone else wants to add?
Governor, the quasi potential programs coming out of the quasis, could you or Secretary Howe elaborate on whether that means creating a new program or connecting business owners with existing programs or
We're
credits?
going to have more to say on that very, very shortly. We wanted to take a moment today to have the conversation and to importantly, which is always our approach, listen to the business community. Listen to business leaders, listen to our companies, large, medium, and small, and have them help inform us as to what we need to do. So we had that conversation today, and we'll be out with more very shortly.
Governor, when did you find out about the pause in the tariffs? Were you guys in your roundtable meeting?
Yeah, we were, right?
Yeah.
We got it first.
What was the reaction in the room?
Well, we were engaged in conversation. I got a message on my phone from someone, and we knew at some point someone said it had been done. But the bottom line is the pause, you heard it here. Pause, no pause. It doesn't matter because we are still left in a state of chaos and uncertainty. And this is why people cannot deploy capital. They can't invest in their workforce. They don't know. To hear one of our business owners say, I have a whiteboard. It's all white right now. That's the reality. There's no action. Nothing's happening. And that fundamentally is the problem, on top, of course, the fact that prices have only gone up on everything, And, in a moment where we're already dealing with inflation, it seems to me the President of the United States should be working to fulfill a campaign promise, which is to lower costs, lower prices for everybody. But we already have tariffs in place. People have already made decisions based on that. They're going to continue to make decisions based on the lack of certainty in the market right now. And that's going to continue to hurt states and businesses around this country, unfortunately.
Governor, you mentioned, this is an unprecedented time. In the few months since you put out your budget proposal, a lot has happened in Washington. Would you be open to signing a budget that looks different from the one that you put forward, just given the state of the economy, maybe a budget that's smaller?
Look, with every budget that I have filed and signed, I have sought to be fiscally prudent and responsible. I'm a pro-growth, smart growth Democrat, all right? Understand that. And I think my record, Secretary Borkowitz, I appreciate the work that you've done with A&F, has been about that. So I'm not going to deviate from that. We've got a responsibility to make sure that anything that I sign is within revenue and what we can sustain and that is smart. The reality also is that every day we continue to see cuts and harm done to us from a federal administration that just doesn't seem to get it. Cutting research for cancer, taking away food from little kids, taking away heating assistance from seniors, cutting services for veterans around this country. It just doesn't make sense. So, I hope that Congress steps in and continues to act, but we'll do what we need to do that's right by the people of Massachusetts.
Governor,
Last question. Last
Mike
question.
Keneally, former Housing Economic Development Secretary under Baker, launched a campaign on Monday as a Republican to challenge you. He criticized you on affordability. He also knocked the shelter system. I'm just curious, did you see his campaign announcement and what's your reaction to it?
I look forward to making my case over the course of a campaign about the record of the last 2 years, which has been a record about delivering results, cutting taxes and lowering costs for people, building more housing, investing in infrastructure, working to fix a broken transportation system. For the first time in years now, the T is without slow zones, and we just opened up South Coast Rail. To talk about what we've done to invest in community college, which is free now, to make college and university more affordable at our state schools, to invest in literacy and early ed and childcare and so much more. So, you know, a lot of work to be done. One of the reasons I want to run for re-election is because we have done a lot and there is so much more left to do. And I want to continue to be able to do that day in and day out because I see what's possible in this state. And we're just going to continue to move forward with all of that.
But what do you
Great.
think about Keneally as a challenger, though, Governor? Governor, what do you think about Keneally as a challenger?
What about the 18th Middlesex District, Lowell, Massachusetts, Mill City? Don't we have a paper mill in Lawrence, a Haverhill paperboard company? We have a lot to talk about. Why don't you come back out?